Hello everyone and welcome back to another Disney animated classic review. I am Chris, joined once again with Dale. We're up to week number 3 right now, and we are here talking about Disney's Fantasia, which is the 1940 film, directed by a whole bunch of directors that I'm not going to list because so many people worked on this film. This is going to be a very interesting one to talk about. It's very different from the usual Disney formula, even by this stage. And there's a lot of information on this film. There's so much to read and go into. There's articles out there. Go and read them. I have learned so much about this film within like the last hour before we went live on this thing. I didn't realize that this film's gone through so many different versions, different re-releases, edits, different changes in the sound and the picture, and some controversial scenes in the film that have since been removed, which we can talk about as well. It's going to be a fun discussion. So, yeah, I guess just jumping into it, I'm going to kickstart with you, as we always do. Fantasia. First off, when did you rewatch this movie? Because do you kind of like watch them on the weekend before you do these things?
I watched it Friday. So, I usually do that. It's usually the Friday, Saturday, just beforehand as well to kind of refresh me. But the first time I ever watched it was, wow, it was one of those. I don't remember when I first watched it, but I remember it always kind of being on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like watching just general cartoons of like, oh yeah, I saw that years. It was always on the background. I saw that about 5-6 times when I was a kid. It's that kind of movie, and also because it's segments, it's kind of like that anyway.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think the first time that I watched this movie. I'm pretty sure. I mentioned this before. My uncle's got like loads of videos, and it was just like the place that I went to. I'd stop over for a weekend and I'd just watch movies. And I think because I was working my way through the Disney classics, I was watching as many Disney films as possible, and Fantasia was always that one I'd heard about. And I don't even know where I originally heard about it. I think it was probably maybe a visual of Sorcerer Mickey, or maybe I'd seen bits of Sorcerer's Apprentice from somewhere before. Maybe even Chernobog, because Chernobog was and still is one of my favorite, like in terms of the visual look of the character, is amazing, and one of my favorite Disney characters. It's so cool. He's on the background. Absolutely love that. So I guess I had a sense of the iconography maybe, and then I watched the film, and I was young when I probably watched the film, and this film clocks in at a little under 2 hours. I think the original cut was just a little over 2. Since then it's been edited down, and I think the version that is widely available now is like 1 hour 55, so it's not exactly the same runtime as the original, I don't think, but I remember it testing my attention span, definitely. And I think when you're a kid, and especially us being 90s kids, we were used to stuff like Aladdin, Lion King, Hercules, the very story-based, the very dialogue-based stuff with the sing-songs in there. We were used to that, so going back to one of these films, even by standards like Snow White and Pinocchio that we've had before, which again had the musical numbers and is that same kind of formula that eventually you have again in the 90s, this was very different. This is just highbrow classical music, and if you ain't into that in the time, it's quite demanding, I think, for a kid to watch something like this.
Well,
So,
it
yeah.
the formula was it's similar to when Disney went to the, what's it called, where World War II was going on. They had a writer, like obviously not a lot of writers there. It was just that sort of format. So like Fun and Fancy Free, how that segments. It was that kind of style again. And I think in a way, I would group it together with Fun and Fancy Free, Make My Music, that sort of era. I know obviously, I'm not saying it's a decline like that, but what I'm saying, I would group it in together in that sort of, the style is very similar to those kind of movies. It's very, it's just Disney. It's none of this whole, obviously Snow White came from the Brothers Grimm. Pinocchio was like, it's stories told from before. Whereas, yes, when you get stuff like The Sorcerer's Apprentice, that was a story told many, many years ago. But it was an original sort of, Disney did this, they had segments. I would group it together with them. I see a lot of similarities, to be fair.
Yeah, I've never actually seen Make My Music, but I'm interested to see if that follows the mold of Fantasia, if it is very much, it's literally just going to be classical music with animated segments
Yeah,
next to it.
I've not seen that one in particular, but I know I'm just that era of Make My
Yeah,
Music, Fun Free, that sort of stuff.
yeah.
But interesting thing about it, a lot of it is foreshadowing what Disney's going to become. Like the tulips and Aladdin, Alice in Wonderland. A lot of that, a lot of the style. If you watch it, you look at it, and knowing what you might know about Disney, knowing there's Alice in Wonderland, there's Bambi, there's this, there's this, there's this. you look at that and go, oh, that's kind of reminds me of this movie. That kind of reminds me of this movie. It's a lot foreshadowing. I see Fantasia as kind of like the pinnacle Disney. Like this, if you were to pinpoint Disney in one movie, it would be Fantasia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many iconic things from this movie, and like, don't get me wrong, when I was a kid, I think I watched this once, and I never really went back to it all that much, but I do remember when I was trying to bolster my Disney animated classic collection on video, trying to track down a VHS copy of Fantasia was really fucking difficult to do. And
Is
I
it
remember
difficult to
going
track
to...
down?
God, sorry.
Is it difficult to track down modern ones?
That's, oh god, yeah, probably. But I remember going to, it was kind of like an entertainment exchange kind of place. If you're in the UK, you might be aware of places like that, but it was like this second, third, fourth hand video store, and they had everything. I don't think anything was like in alphabetical order. You just walked in and just tried to find the film that you could find. And I had to order it in. I do remember that they had to get it. They had to source it from somewhere. I think like 2 weeks later, I got an old VHS copy of it, which is actually downstairs. I probably should have bought it up, but that was the video that I had, and maybe I watched it like once or twice. But I think more than anything, I probably fast forwarded to my favorite segments in the film. So it's actually rewatching it for this has been the first time in a long time since I've gone back and rewatched this film. If I was going to give my initial opinions on this film, if I'm reviewing this as a piece of animation, this is up there as probably one of the best animated films there is, certainly in Disney's catalogue. The fact that this came out the same year as Pinocchio as well, which we were saying a little bit before we went live, I can't believe that, because Pinocchio is massive and sprawling and looks really, we talked about this last week, really technically complicated with the underwater sequences and the monstro sequences. Pretty much everything in that film looks amazing in terms of the animation and everything, and then this just like ramps it up to another degree. It's very experimental, based on an idea by Disney, I think kind of spawned from the Sorcerer's Apprentice sequence in isolation, because I think they were working on that as one of the silly symphonies, and I think that the concept was growing and growing, and the budget was getting higher and higher, and I think it reached a point where they were like, if we release this as a silly symphony, we're not going to make our money back on this. Wow. So it was shelved, and to be a part of a feature film at some point, whether they knew what that film was going to be. But,
the original was meant to, the Sorcerer's Apprentice himself was meant to be dopey.
Yeah, that's
But I can't remember why they decided against it, but I know it was,
I think it was Walt himself who vetoed it, because he said that he didn't want to not tarnish the memory of the original Disney animated classic, but like Snow White was special, and he wanted to leave that intact as it was and not draw comparisons to anything. I think The Sorcerer's Apprentice was meant to be a bit of a revitalization for the Mickey Mouse character, who was declining in popularity, which is... When was Steamboat Willie and things like that? It was like 1928. I want to say, was it like 28 or something?
I feel like it was. That was the first full length Mickey cartoon.
Yeah.
I want to say 28, 29. There's an 8 in there. In my brain, first went 38.
Yeah, I want to say 28.
That's way too broad. So
28. I should know this. But I mean, the redesign for Mickey in this one is more... I know he's gone through loads of different versions since then, but it added the pupils to his eyes to give him a bit more expression, which wasn't a part of the character before. I think it was just like the black dots for eyes that he had before.
And the glove.
So yeah, loads of things. And even in terms of the technical advancements as well, I was reading about the creation of Fantasound as well, which is almost the precursor to surround sound in cinemas. That massive technological jump, which was sort of formulated by and developed by Disney and the Radio Corporation of America, all very experimental, and Walt wanted this sound system that made you feel like you were in the orchestra pit, so you could get the full force of that orchestra, because I think before then cinemas just had a single speaker in the center of the screen, and he wanted something more grandiose, and they didn't know how to make it, and they were trying to come up with ideas of how to piece it together. Basically, a lot of money later, they came up with something which was the Fantasound, and it was this pioneering system which, has led on to other films, and probably is, has led to us having surround sound and all the other things that go with it today, multi-channel audio, things like that. So there's a lot to talk about this movie. Where do we want to start? Do we want to go into any memories that we have of this? Do we want to talk about favorite segments? I think we should probably go through each segment in and of itself and just kind of give our opinions on it or anything that we've
Well,
noticed maybe.
first I was going to say memories. To be fair, start with not the movie itself, but things surrounding the movie. So
Yeah.
in Disneyland, like the giant sorcerer's hat,
Mm-hmm.
like that,
Yeah.
like that's an iconic thing. Just that appearing, knowing it's Fantasia. So you might have never seen the movie, but you know it's Fantasia. You're like, oh, I know what Fantasia is. It's one of those, like I say, you just know it. Like the Sorcerer Apprentice, whether you've seen it, everyone's seen Mickey dressed like that. It's those kind of things. I think that's where the memory of it all comes from, or the brooms, them like walking around. You see it as it's just. I think everything about Fantasia is basically it's there. It's around Disney all the time. That's where my memories always stem from, not just the movie itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned the hat. I remember going to this would have been years ago now. I can't remember if it was the first time I went to Disneyland when I was 7, and then I've only been a second time when I was 11. So I'm 30 now. So it's been a long time ago. But I remember we bought my auntie and uncle a model of Sorcerer Mickey, and it's probably my favorite look of Mickey Mouse. It's just yeah, it is so iconic. You mentioned the hat, like you just see that, and if you're a Disney fan, you immediately know what it's from and what it symbolizes and everything. Um,
The brilliant thing about Sorcerer's Apprentice itself as well is, what about any of this? It could be a silent movie. It could,
yeah,
because obviously there doesn't have to be any dialogue, but it could just be like, because everything's done on expression. It's kind of like Mr. Bean. Like the fact that Mr. Bean was made as a whole, they wanted to do. I know they created Mr. Bean for as an example of they wanted to do it so that it was translatable everywhere rather than this comedy that had to be translated. And this, it's the same kind of thing. You get the emotion from them, and they wanted that kind of comedy and all that to just translate over. So whether or not you got the music, it's still like a masterpiece of animation.
oh god, yeah, yeah. And speaking of the Sorcerer's Apprentice sequence, which it's the most iconic segment in the film, isn't it? Although it's not my favorite, I will say. You could probably guess what my favorite is going to be. But I distinctly remember this, year 6 at school in our music lessons, and we had this. I don't know if we were doing like SATs or something like that, or so we were doing some kind of exam as you do in year 6 at school. It's you're not in high school yet, so it is whatever. And it played an extract of music which was The Sorcerer's Apprentice. So I would have seen Fantasia at that point, and I would have been familiar with it because I knew what the piece of music was instantly. And one of the questions was, describe what you imagine when you hear this song. Now, I'm sure some people had never watched the Disney film, they didn't know classical music or whatever, and they were writing down whatever. And I almost wrote verbatim exactly what happens in the Mickey Mouse cartoons. So I wrote like, I visualize Mickey Mouse taking the sorcerer's hat and summoning an army of brooms to help bring buckets of water in and it overflow. And I think I like exceeded the lines and was writing the whole thing out.
The
So
plot of Fantasia.
I actually can't remember if I got full marks on that. I feel like I should, although it does show my lack of imagination to picture anything else. But that just shows how iconic that segment is to that song. What I like about this as well, doing a bit of reading on the film, is you got some live action segments in there. You've got the conductor. You got Leopold Stokowski as the conductor, and just reading about it, how much Walt brought him into the creative process as well. I think initially Stokowski agreed to work for free when I think he was just conducting solely the Sorcerer's Apprentice song, and then when the film developed and they knew they were going to do this feature, which I think was called. Oh, what was the original title for the film? Was it just like the classic feature or something like that? They didn't. It wasn't called Fantasia originally. It was like a precursor. I forgot what the original working title for the film was anyway. But when they blew up to that, obviously he had to be paid quite a lot. But I think Disney allowed him to hand pick which tracks he wanted to have in the film. And there was a few extra ones originally. I think they originally had like Claire de Lune in there, and there was a couple of other ones which I think were cut for time, or they couldn't formulate an idea around them. And then you have Deems Taylor, who's the master of
It was
ceremonies.
called the concert feature.
Concert feature, that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
And then you've got Deems Taylor as well, who introduces each of the segments. But yeah, just reading about it, Walt, I don't know much about him in his personal life. I know some people have said some pretty damning things about him, but
Well, if you've seen
like
the Family Guy, right?
yeah, but he paid everyone out of his own pocket. He was, if I think one of the animators animating the ballet sequence with the ostriches and the hippo and the elephants didn't know anything about ballet and didn't know where to start. So Disney like bought him tickets to go and see the Russian ballet and to go backstage and get some, do some research and info and things like that. That's just really cool that he'd do something like that, and it was all out of his own pocket. What I have seen is that Disney doesn't really seem like, he's not an animator, he's a story artist or anything like that, but he has that initial concept and he knows what he wants and he knows how to push his team to get the results that he wants. So he is a perfectionist, and you do see that, reading about Snow White, and that was a passion project for him, and he poured his heart and soul into that one. Same with Pinocchio, that he loved that book when someone bought it in. And although they made some tweaks to the story of Pinocchio, it was all part of his vision. And this, like, just the concept, right? I want classical music visualized through animation. It's a pioneering thing. No one had really done it. I know, like, the silly symphonies are kind of like that, like they were silent for the most part with music, but no one had done anything like this on this scale. So I always do, like, congratulate Walt's just drive in order to get things done.
There was a lot coming from that as well, though, because you had that, and you had obviously Merry Melodies becoming Looney Tunes. There was a lot based on music, but I guess a lot kind of had to be them, because when I say had to be, I mean because obviously back in the day when it was obviously silent movies, you'd have someone just playing the piano in front of. So obviously you get the silent movies now, like you'll see them on YouTube, and there's got like the piano playing and like, all that kind of stuff, because that was actually the thing, because there was no obviously sound. There'd be someone at the front of the theater playing a piano. And that's obviously what the movie was going. So I think a lot was also like, that's what the world knew. Everything was music, everything was live music. And this, when you had the live action sequence, you had you basically had that live music section. So yes, we're watching a movie because, back in the day, cartoons were in cinema. Like, do you know what I mean? You had like the small cartoons like that. So essentially it was just that. It was that. And then in between it, you'd have the conductor come on going, right, now we're doing this one. But it was just a whole feature.
Yeah, and the music, you mentioned Looney Tunes there as well. I love the music to Looney Tunes segments because they are just so perfectly timed. Yes, there we go. Love it. We need to review that movie at some point. That's a great fucking movie.
Not the second one.
Yeah, I love how even in those Looney Tunes cartoons, the music's so perfectly synced with the actions, and if someone's tiptoeing like slowly, the music will match that and the crazy action. So yeah, music is so important to things like this, and I think that exemplifies in this movie just the importance of music with no dialogue. And as I say, like I think as a kid, like kids might not gravitate to this kind of film. They might be fine on a couple of the segments in isolation, but to make them sit for 2 hours with like no dialogue and not many characters, I don't know. I don't know how they gravitate
more
appreciative.
Towards that.
Yeah. But I love how candid Disney was about like in early discussions and stuff when they had the composer there, Stokowski and Taylor, and they were coming up with their ideas. Disney didn't really contribute much to any of those early concepts or ideas generation because and I think this isn't a direct quote, but apparently said he admitted that his knowledge of music was instinctive and untrained, and I think he also said that classical music at that point was always something that he'd just walk out on. Classical music wasn't his thing at all. But yeah, I mean, he had a concept, he had a vision, and they got it done, and it was incredible. We'll talk about the different versions and stuff, but let's dip into the actual segments themselves now. So our first one kickstarts the movie. We've got Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach. This is pretty much just very abstract patterns and line. It's like sound visualized in the sound waves, basically.
What was it, Windows Media Player with a
my god, that takes me back. Jesus, that's so many years ago now. I remember that. Yeah, basically that. I think it's fine. I think it's probably a good way to introduce you into the film. It is a little bit of a slow start with it, I think, but it kind of exemplifies the concept of the film and what they're trying to do from the very basics of hearing a piece of music and just visualizing it in terms of literally lines like, is it like a really fast and staccato piece, you're going to have like loads of jagged lines, or is it more of a softer piece, you're going to have like a soft wave? So I think it's probably, as an animated film, it's a good way to get you into the film as to what the initial concept's going to be before you get into like the more elaborate animated sequences. I think in some versions, I think because they took this film around on like a roadshow. I think it was like a 13 screen roadshow or something they were doing. 13 cities, sorry, around the US between 1940 and 1941. Obviously, the war was going on at this point. Same with Pinocchio. Obviously, it was released the same year. Distribution to European markets was cut off, so it didn't really make much money back.
Yeah.
You also had the massive production cost of the movie as well. And I think just the expenses of new stuff like Fantasound, which really, really sank into the budget, I think. This was like redistributed like every other year, and it was edited and stuff. And I think the second time this was redistributed, RKO said that the 2-hour runtime is too long. We don't want it. We want it much shorter. And Disney really pushed back against that, and he said, I'm not going to edit it any shorter. Like, if you want to edit it, that's fine, but I can't do that. This is like my baby. This is as it's intended. I don't want to cut anything. But RKO cut it down to like, I think it was like 1:45, and then I think they did another cut which was 1:20. So they just like cleaved into this movie by like 40 minutes. And I think the first segment, the Toccata and Fugue in D minor, was one of the things that got cut. If you are going to cut this film down, which I don't think you should do in the first place, always release the film as it's intended. But if you are going to cut it down, that would probably be the first thing that I go to remove. I think it was a lot of the live action segments and the introductions to the pieces, and I think it was literally just all the live action segments and that toccata were removed from the film to bring the runtime down.
Because the thing is, they probably saw it as I was going to say they saw it as animation. It is an animation, but as a whole, this is a movie. Whereas I see it more of a whole. It's a lot of things, and it's someone making an experience in the theatre rather than... Because I think it would have been great to see it back then in 1940, go into like a cinema, somewhere like that. I think that'd be great because, like I say, it's just a cartoon and someone's introducing it rather than just you're watching a load. Do you get what I mean? So I think that would have been a very different experience. And I think as much as, there's a special place for it, I think there would be even more of a special place for it if you saw it where it's meant to be. It's kind of like, like when you see some things are like, oh, that's meant to be viewed here, or that was meant to be listened to on this kind of... It's a very in the moment 1940s. It was released then for that time.
Yeah, and there's some early pictures, like the really cool... I love cinemas like this as well, and there's a handful around that I've been to. The old ones with like the kiosk on the front, like Inglourious Bastards kind of cinema, the old style ones, and there's pictures of it with like Fantasia tonight, broadcasting at what time. But it would have been treated like a show. The thing had an intermission, which would have been, I think it had like a 15-minute intermission, and it was treated like an actual concert movie. And I think I quite like the idea of that roadshow movie, and I think ticket sales were pretty damn good when it was first released, actually. I think there was something like they had 8 telephone operators or something just because of the influx of tickets, people wanting to see it. Obviously, it died down after that, and I think, with the war mountain and things like that, people just maybe didn't go to the cinema all that much, I don't know. And then you get like all the different re-releases and everything like that. So I'm glad that it made its money back eventually. It's just we'll see this definitely in the next few films. Certainly when we get to just after Bambi, and we've got things like Saludos Amigos and Three Caballeros, and we've got that whole chunk that was during the main war effort. So we're going to get a lot more movies like that.
The thing is, when you get to movies like that, they are more glorified cartoon shorts.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
In a way, this kind of is as well. It is a glorified cartoon short because there's just different shorts, and like this isn't the first time that you see a cartoon, whether it be Looney Tunes, whether it be a Disney cartoon, that is, when I say random, I mean something that's like it hasn't got Mickey Mouse in it, hasn't got Donald Duck, it hasn't got Goofy in it. It's just random, like these characters do this, but you never see them again. So then they do something else. And it's just a glorified put load together, have someone introduce it. But I think that's what makes it special.
Yeah, and I think, it's been a long, long time since I've seen Fun and Fancy Free. And I haven't, as I say, I still haven't seen Make My Music, I haven't seen Melody Time. I don't know if the animation takes a bit of a knock, because I know certainly with Dumbo, they wanted a really cheap movie release, so there's not as much. I still really love the animation in Dumbo, but like there's visually nowhere near as much detail as there is in the likes of Snow White, Pinocchio, or Fantasia, because they were trying to recoup the losses of Pinocchio and Fantasia, and they just wanted a really quick movie. I think Dumbo clocks in at like 64 minutes. It's one of the shortest Disney animated classics there is. And I
Did
guess
they do a live action of that?
Dumbo, yeah, Tim Burton directed it. It was terrible.
I was going to say, because I haven't seen any of them. They get away from me when they do live action. I'm like, did that happen in the end?
Yeah, it was really bad. It was a really, really bad movie.
No surprise there.
Second piece then in Fantasia is the Nutcracker Suite by Tchaikovsky. This is where you were talking about, you got like your dancing fairies and fish, leaves, flowers, everything like that. Yeah, we both got Alice in Wonderland vibes from this. Now, Alice in Wonderland came much later. Alice in Wonderland is classic number 13, and when was that released? I should know
1952?
Yeah, I think it doesn't tell me the date on there. That's really annoying. Yeah, it's either 50s or... Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the 50s, wasn't it?
It's definitely the 50s. I'll have a look.
So, I mean, it's a long time after this film, but yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to think if they did go back and go, how did we do that originally? Like, let's try and recreate that now, because we need more singing and dancing flowers right now. So,
yeah, we always need singing and dancing flowers.
I really like this segment. I think my favorite bit is actually like the fairies at the beginning, where they're sort of like tiptoeing over like webs, and you've got like the little bits of raindrops, and you know, perfectly timed. They're dancing in time to the music. 51. Wow. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so yeah, 11 years after. It's not too long, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, so maybe. But yeah, no, I really like this segment. It's a true classic piece. You know, when it chimes up, everyone knows this one. Even if they don't know the name of it, they've heard it before.
A lot of these as well, because they're all music written around... Not music, sorry. Visuals written around the music, which is... how they do animation anyway. They do the voices first and draw around it, you know, rather than the other way around. So when you get to Sorcerer's Apprentice being next, they went the other way, and it was the first one. They were like, right, this... Because they even introduced it that way, don't they? They even go, this is the first where the music was written afterwards, and it comes from an actual thing that it's based on, which is really cool.
Yeah, so I've just got it here, yeah. 1797 poem called Der Zauberlehrling, I think. Zauberlehrling, something like that. And then, yeah, the music came after that as well, Sorcerer's Apprentice. So it's pretty cool. And it goes to show it feels like a very focused short. You can tell that that's the one where, you know, this is actually a story we're telling. Before, the previous two are more abstract. And yeah, it's fun seeing, you know, flowers and fairies dancing around to the Nutcracker Suite, sure. But this is the one where you've got a complete narrative, beginning, middle, and end. They're working off some source material from that poem. And I was reading about the animation. I think this was more true of the Nutcracker Suite, but it was probably the same with this one as well. Some of the animators, I guess, would have to have musical knowledge, unless they were just looking at it from a pure visual standpoint. They would have a copy of the sheet music, the music, in front of them as they animated, so that they could match the patterns and the beats and the rhythms of the music. So I don't know if that was for everyone, because I can't imagine every single animator would have that intimate knowledge of being able to sight read and read rhythm and notation and things like that. But it's pretty cool for the ones that did, I think, definitely. And I know for the Nutcracker Suite, just going back to that as well, they brought in dancers so that they could animate that from, like, you know, like the twirling of a skirt or something, and then they would try and replicate that in animation. I think they brought in sort of like Middle Eastern dancers as well for the fish to get the movement. So I do like how in these stages, and I think even when you get to Lion King, they were bringing in live action representations of things so that they could, you know, animate. I know Lion King, they actually brought in the actual animals like lion cubs and everything, and watched how they moved and how they interacted to help the artist get the impression. So I guess that's just something that never goes away with Disney, really. Maybe it is now. Maybe it's a lost cause with things now, and maybe they don't do that as much. But I like that they go the extra mile with that kind of stuff. And I think they brought in they brought in an actor for Yen Sid for again to sort of like get the human likeness. I can't
But he
remember the
never
name
had a
of it now.
voice.
No, and it was years later when I actually found out what his name was, because obviously none of the characters in this are named. You don't really, well, they didn't do credits of any characters, did they, at the end? And you wouldn't get credits anyway for this because, as I say, there's no voices. So
Well,
I
Mickey has a voice.
okay, yeah, well, yeah, Mickey does in the film, I suppose. Yeah, he's the only
He,
character though. But I,
and he
I don't know
speaks.
where all these names
Yeah.
came from. Was it just merchandise? Was it books? I don't know where I found out that Chernabog was called Chernabog. Maybe it was from Kingdom Hearts. Maybe it was the boss battle, and I was go, oh, his name's Chernabog. Okay.
I think a lot of it did come from things like that. It's kind of like Batman. Like a lot of things come from where you don't expect it. Like, obviously you got certain characters that come from TV shows where you think, oh, okay, a lot of stuff didn't come from the comics.
Mhm.
Similar sort of thing. Like a lot of things come from merchandise. They're not named until then.
Yeah, and then they just become popular knowledge after that, don't they? So, Yen Sid, I always thought was a I don't know if I call it a cool name. It's just Disney backwards. It's just so
Yeah.
basic, bitch, isn't it? The name of the crocodile or the alligator as well that chases the hippo around is like a terrible name. It's like
And there you go,
Ben.
Peter Pan.
Yeah, yeah. I think his name is like Ben Alligator or something like that. Like I was like,
Okay, I didn't know what his name was.
I was like, that's terrible. That's really terrible. But yeah, no, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, absolute classic. I'd say that's probably the most iconic segment of the whole film, probably for good reason. And I'm pretty sure it's been a long time since I've rewatched it, but Fantasia 2, well, yeah, I mean, he's on the front cover again. I'm pretty sure they redo that segment and just play it again in the film because it is so iconic.
I still see that and Night on Bald Mountain connected. That's what I see. I see it as a whole. Sorcerer's Apprentice, he does what he does. They spill all the water, he floods the place, and then he sets out this demon from the mountain by mistake. That's how I see it.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, if they're all interconnected in some way.
Like, that's how I saw it, and I think I see it like that as well, because I feel like when I was a kid, that's what I thought it was. And then years later, when I watched it again, I obviously saw because I thought they were next to each other. I thought many years ago that was sort of just one thing, and that's the most iconic for me. Sorcerer's Apprentice, like I say, it's just the thing you see in the background. You see Mickey, you see this, you see the sorcerer's hat, and then he sets off this giant creature, and that's the way I saw it, and I still see it that way.
That's your headcanon. No, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I really like the animation on Yensid as well because he feels intimidating. Just how they animate his face and his stern expression, the fact that he is immensely powerful, and you get that from him. And he just scowls, and yeah, when Mickey fucks up, and he knows that he's fucked up, and Yensid he does his Moses moment where he parts the water, and then the music goes quiet. And Mickey's like sheepishly approaching him with the hat, just that intense stare that Yensid
Which
has.
he redoes in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
He parts the heartless and the nobodies.
Well, when I was watching this, when he goes, when Yensid gets tired and he retires to his rooms, I was like, oh, I know where that is in Traverse Town, and I'm going to walk up that staircase. It's right there. Yeah.
I think that was cool though, because that was the first time he was ever given the voice. Like, he never had a voice actor before that.
Yeah.
It's the most the character's been delved into, because he was that mystery kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like he was always that mystery kind of character in the sense of, this is a weird, this is a weird comparison, but I'd always compare him to like Eddie Van Halen, and the reason
can I just say before you give your explanation, I think we're 3 for 3 so far. I think we've referred to or mentioned Van Halen at some point during every single one of these. You do realise now, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a habit. You've got to do this for you've got to find a way to refer to Van Halen in every one of these reviews.
I will.
Now.
I'll find a way for every single one.
Do it.
I'll refer to like Alice in Wonderland. Alice will be like David Lee Roth, and I will find a way. But no, the reason I say that is there's legit, because to me, whenever I don't know, you get like guitar videos on YouTube, like someone might, I don't know, you might get someone go, oh, I'm going to teach you how to play this song. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. There was even one, and this is the video that made me think about it. Someone doing this video of what would Stairway to Heaven sound like if Paul Gilbert did the solo. And then what would Stairway to Heaven sound like if Eddie Van Halen did the solo. Now, they got Paul Gilbert to actually come in. He did the solo. For Eddie Van Halen, they got Phil X to play like Eddie Van Halen. Mm-hmm. So there's always that whole, he was always it's harder to get hold of him. He's like that special kind of, that's the way you get what I mean. That's the way
Mm.
I saw it. It was always hard to get a hold of. He wasn't going to be there himself. He's that special, like above that level. And I feel like Yensid was kind of the same. He was that Disney character. You don't see him everywhere, but he's there and he's like above Mickey because he taught him. But he's always in his chamber. He's not going to come out. And that's how he was treated in Kingdom Hearts as well. He was a retired Keyblade master. He
Mm.
sort of did everything from the background. I think that was really, really cool. Like, it's good that they haven't utilized him too much because he's always he's got that mysterious sense about him.
Yeah, the enigmatic quality about him really works for me. Yeah, he's always there. And the fact, what I like about all of these, as I mentioned with the names, is that you kind of have to source that yourself. You have to like find that information out for yourself, what all these characters are called. We'll move on to the next one. So we've got the Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. This is the history of the Earth's beginnings, the creation of the planet, and then leading into the reign and the eventual extinction of the dinosaurs. Originally, apparently, this idea was meant to continue past the dinosaurs, and it was going to go into the age of mammals and the evolution of man. And I think it was going to conclude with man creating fire to show, you know, human achievement at the end. I think that would have been really cool. And this is just me, because as a kid, I think a lot of kids are like this. Dinosaurs are so cool, especially like lads. Like, dinosaurs are just amazing, and dinosaurs were everywhere in the 90s. You had Jurassic Park, you had The Land Before Time, you know, you had like We're Back, a dinosaur story. There's just so many things that were dinosaur related. I think you had that sitcom as well. It was literally called The Dinosaurs, I think, wasn't it? Disney's Dinosaur. It was everywhere, no. Like the 90s, early 2000s.
Are you thinking of the one where they like they're dressed up? Like, yeah. It's all people in the, and they're dancing around,
You had Barney the dinosaur. You had Walking with Dinosaurs. It was everywhere. Everywhere.
Do you remember Polka Dot Shorts?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and I swear there was a dinosaur in that.
Probably. There was a lot of dinosaur stuff. And I remember having books as a kid. Like, dinosaurs were great. So I got a massive...
Power Rangers, dinosaurs.
Yeah. Megazord. So I got a kick out of watching this again. I would have loved to have seen them do the Age of Mammals and Man, because I just love the animation in this segment. And it really takes its time as well. The whole, you know, volcanic eruption and tectonic shifts at the beginning. It really kind of eases you into that primordial world. I forgot that whole segment. I thought it was just the dinosaur one, but I love how there's that whole like beginning into it.
I find it the darkest out of all. I know Chernobyl, like Nightmare Mountain, is the darkest, but I think that with the music, the way it turns, I find that was very dark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nightmare Mountain is the whole thing's supposed to be dark, and you know, it's kind of like the obvious dark part. Yeah. But this, I found that the turn of like, okay, this is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they don't do any like cutesy shit with the dinosaurs. It really feels like. I know there's some cutesy shit in like The Land Before Time, but The Land Before Time gets really intense and hard hitting. And
because one of them gets shot by a dad at 3 years old.
Oh,
that did happen.
Not that we're monetized, but if we were, that would be instant. Yeah, I absolutely love The Land Before Time. I think it's absolutely gut-wrenching, like most of that movie, and there's so much childhood trauma. Probably not as much as the one who played Ducky. That's a hell of a lot of trauma. But I like that they still brought that same maturity to it, I guess, and gravitas, because you had a segment with like dancing mushrooms a little bit before this and Mickey Mouse, but this one was like, no, we want to try and replicate this as much as possible, that same kind of historical or prehistorical level to it, I guess. Well, it's interesting to see the how scientific information and knowledge has developed about dinosaurs, though, because they were like, we don't really know how the dinosaurs were wiped out. We think it was just like temperatures changed and they died in a drought. So the end of this, the extinction, is just that everything gets like really deserty and there's no water, and they all die of starvation and thirst. And we know a little bit more now. We're pretty sure it was the meteor that crash landed and was, you know, a massive impact globally on the vegetation and temperature and geology of the world. You think it was aliens, don't you?
No, I don't. I think they're still out there. I think they built a spaceship and they all flew away to another planet. I think they did what we were trying to do. I think that's what they did.
But how could the T-Rex pilot the machine, because it doesn't have opposable thumbs?
That's because he didn't make machines like we would. We're thinking of making a spaceship as we would for opposable thumbs, but he made it for him. Like he made a T-Rex capable one. Exactly. You don't know.
It's
You
good.
weren't there.
It's good to have dreams, man. I'd love dinosaurs to still be. No, actually, no. Fuck that. I wouldn't want dinosaurs to still be around because I'd be terrified. But you know, they're probably working on it in some kind of Russian lab or something.
Could
Every
ride a
now and then, I hear
pterodactyl.
something like scientists are this much closer to cloning mammoths or something like that, and it's
And
like we're
then you're
this
like,
close away from
why?
real life Jurassic Park. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. And then you're like, but why?
Just
Have
don't
we
believe
not
it.
learned things from the 90s? Apparently not.
But
We
no,
didn't learn
the
from iRobot.
dinosaur one, the Rite of Spring, really is probably up there as one of my favorites in this. Just the animation's great. I'd have loved to have carried on, but I think actually Disney mentioned one of the reasons that he didn't continue it and didn't add the whole mammals and the evolution of man was because he didn't want to piss off creationists and like people with different, overly religious people that didn't that believe evolution wasn't a thing. So that's the reason that he didn't do that. And people who don't believe that are fucking stupid. But anyway, let's continue. We have the intermission. There's like a jazz jam session, and there's some slapstick with Mickey coming out, and
I
yeah,
feel like
whatever.
that bit was kind of done as a whole. We do it. And you know, when you kind of do it and you're like, it's quite good actually, let's keep going. Like, I feel like that was kind of one of them moments. It's like if you see a band on stage and they do a little bit, like they jam, and then they keep going because they're like, oh, it's kind of good actually. Like, I feel like it was that kind of moment.
I think I read so much about this film, like a lot of it's kind of gone in one ear and out the other. But I think one of the bits was that they wanted like a humorous sequence with this jazz thing because jazz is always viewed as this like very highbrow, if you're in the know, you're in the know kind of thing, and they just wanted to have a bit of fun with it. I think. And don't you have like another animated line Yeah, he demonstrates like what a sound wave would sound like. It's very similar to the first segment in the film, I think, where he says, I'm going to get a trumpet to play a note, and then we're going to try and visualize what this would look like maybe in like an animated line or something. So
Yeah.
it's fine. It is whatever. Then we have this is where we get the controversial scenes in this one. We have the Pastoral Symphony by Ludwig van Beethoven, and it's stylized in the sort of Greco-Roman mythology world. You've got centaurs, you've got fauns, or satyrs or whatever they're called. And you've got some classic Roman gods in there as well. You've got Bacchus, who's the god of wine. You've got Zeus, and you've got Vulcan in there. I really like this segment. It's a lovely piece of music, and I didn't realize this is like a big segment of this film. This goes on for quite a while. At first, you kind of spend a lot of time with Pegasus and family, with a really terrifying looking male Pegasus as well. Like, did you see that shit? Like, that looked. I tell you what it
Yeah.
reminded me of, and this you'll probably appreciate this because you've watched some of the Disney sequels, right? Return of Jafar.
Oh.
Do you remember the sequence where they go over a waterfall on like flying
Yeah.
demonic horses?
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of that a
Okay.
little bit.
Yeah. See, again, I do think the more we look at these things, I do think a lot of things came from Fantasia. They went, that'll be cool. Let's
Mm,
do that. I really do. I mean, whether or not it was, I feel like quite a lot of it was on purpose, like the tulips and Alice in Wonderland and all that. But
mm.
the more you look at it, you think that it's a lot, like a lot. Like I say, I do think this is the pinnacle of, if you were to pinpoint Disney, it would be Fantasia.
I was watching this, and obviously, as we mentioned, you got Zeus in there and Mount Olympus and things like that. And maybe this is just sort of like my modern sensibilities now, where every single thing has to be a shared universe, which I don't like. But I was kind of watching this thinking like, not that I ever want to see this re-edited. I don't. But what if they used the likeness of Mount Olympus from Disney's Hercules, and what if they used Zeus's likeness from Disney's Hercules and used it in this one? I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool.
Well, you speaking of shared universes, like I know it's not actually this, but the way they utilize characters when you get iconic like Mickey Mouse, Goofy, you get Donald Duck, you even get like even when it comes to like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, all that kind of stuff, Porky Pig, they play different characters in different things. So like again, Fun and Fancy Free, Mickey plays a character, then Mickey will play a different character. So they're kind of like, in a way, Mickey Mouse is like a animated actor in a way. Like he's there, Mickey Mouse, and you could have Mickey Mouse play a character. Mickey Mouse will then play one of the Three Musketeers. So I think that's one really, really great thing that I think these older cartoons and stuff get. Because who do we have like that now? There's no cartoon characters that are we gonna make this person? They're gonna play a load of characters. You know,
Mm.
Mickey Mouse is a character in himself. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's that kind of stuff. But what happened to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? When did he stop?
Oh God. It would have been before Mickey made it big, definitely.
Because he
Would
was
it have
the
been like
original.
would it have been like the early 30s, maybe? I want to say,
Yeah, I
perhaps.
mean he was the original though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And
So in
it was
in an alternate world, he's the mascot of Disney still.
it's in an alternate world. Yeah, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and then Bugs Bunny are obviously rivals. So
Mm.
you'd have two rabbits. So it's probably a good move that they
Yeah,
changed
yeah, yeah.
to something different. But obviously speaking of that, like that Epic Mickey, they brought them. They were both Epic Mickey too, wasn't it? And then
Mm.
they both worked together, which I thought was really cool. And it's really cool that Disney still have utilized the character. I think
Mm.
that's pretty amazing, to be fair.
They don't. I mean, I know that was a video game, wasn't it? But like, I don't. You don't really see him much in like the modern sensibility. Mind you, modern Disney is just not that they have any fucking reverence for what they did before, because they're just doing whatever they're doing now
To
and
be
running
fair,
and
though,
running the company into the ground. But
I think if they used him now, it would be a bit kind of a kick in the teeth of the whole. But he's not. I feel like he's still not an official Disney character in a way. It's
that's what
very
I mean. Like rights, like they still have the rights to the character. Of course they do if they're using him in things like Epic Mickey and things like that. So I don't know. Is it time to get a new Disney mascot in there as well into the fold? No, don't want him
no,
in there.
no. We these kind of things we don't change. It's like we don't ever want Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse on screen together ever again unless it's Kingdom Hearts, which I think that'd be amazing. But anyway,
I
the
do
point
love
is we
that
don't.
scene though from Who Framed Roger Rabbit when that does
That's
happen.
what I mean. We don't
Yeah,
want another because it was so good. We don't
yeah.
want another one because it would literally be like getting it from Wish. It would just be the silliest thing. So,
I remember
because
they
they
were like really on the ball. Like both studios were like, we can have them on screen together, but they have got to have the exact amount of screen time. They need to
no, it was
appear
the
in the
same
frame
line.
together, and
It was the same lines because they had to say the exact same amount of words. But if you
that's it.
look, I think it's Bugs Bunny is on screen longer
Oh,
because
okay.
one of them is on screen a bit longer because I thought it was on screen time and I remember rewatching it and being like, but he's on screen longer than that one. So yeah,
Mm.
but it's the same amount of words.
Oh,
But
okay.
you'd think screen time would be there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
yeah, they were
still
very
that film still blows me away when that happens. I love that moment. That's a really good film. I need to watch that again, actually. Um, so yeah, just going back to this segment, I like this segment. You know, Bacchus is just being a lovable pisshead the whole time, which is great. Um, right, okay, here we get into some controversy now. We get into racist Disney. Um, so I think it was the 1969 re-release of the movie was where the film was edited. It might have been a bit before that. I know it was in the 60s. So the version of Fantasia that I've watched that any of us have probably watched is the edited version, whether we would have realised it or not. I only found this out fairly recently when I rewatched the film. I was doing a little bit of initial reading a couple of weeks ago. And you can find these deleted scenes on YouTube. It's the miracle of the internet. We can find some of these original scenes. There were 4 shots that were removed during the Pastoral Symphony. And they removed 2 characters that are racial stereotypes. There's 2 black centaurettes, and they had names. One was called Sunflower, and one was called Otica. And you know, the as would have been the time, the sort of black slaves, or if you want to call them that, or like helpers or housemaids or whatever, and they're depicted polishing the hooves of the white centaurettes, who are then going to be, you know, going off to try and get the guys. And they were overly caricatured and, you know, racial stereotypes at the time. I don't need to go into it. We all know what they are.
like
So
in
watching it
Bollywood.
was, I don't want to say like pretty shocking because it's 1940s Disney. We know what that was. And it's not just Disney, like it was everything at the time. I'm not condoning it, of course not. And I think Disney, right before he died, when they were editing this, when they were removing the scenes, oh no, it might have been the editor actually. It might have been like one of the original editors of the film. He says that he's glad to see the scenes go, because it does really like date the film and everything like that. I'm of the like of mind that I mean I'm fine with the removal. When I watched it on my DVD copy where these characters are removed. Doesn't change the film at all. I actually wondered if it would change the flow of the music, though, to the animation, or if they've filled that gap, if they filled that time with some extra stuff. But I think I did watch a side-by-side comparison of that scene, and the following shots do move in a different sequence to the music, so I imagine it would offset it to what the original version was. I'm always of the like of mind that film, in whatever medium and whatever the message, should be preserved for historical purposes. Learn from it, move on from it. If it's a problem, you can look back at some older things and go, oh, that shit wouldn't fly now. So I think in some respects things like that should be preserved, but I'm not really against the newer version because it doesn't really change it for me. Like, it doesn't really change it, and something like that, watching it now, would stick out and you'd go, oofed. But I think the original version should still be preserved and be available in some way. Just kind of removing these things and just pretending they didn't happen. I don't know. It's an interesting thing of sort of like of art and like the original artist's intention, for good purposes or bad. I think it should still be available out there, but at least we can see those scenes on YouTube though, right? So if we do want to go, oh, what were those scenes about, we can still watch them. But
the thing is, though, it's not like it's obvious. I mean, when I say it's not obviously racist, obviously it is to an extent, but it's not in the sense that they don't like make something. They don't make someone like, you're particularly a slave. It's this. It's just caricatures.
Yeah,
that's all it is. So I don't think it should be taken out. Like, obviously, I get why they did, but like you say, I think that kind of stuff should be preserved. And Fantasia has got a warning sign on Disney Plus now.
Has it? Has it actually?
Yep. Yeah, it has, which I was
even
surprised
though they've got that scene removed. Why is that still in there?
Do you know what? I wish I knew, but I wonder whether Disney did it because it was a whole because it's had it before kind of thing. Like, we realize this is this because it had it. We don't have it anymore, but you know what I mean? That kind of saved the back of everyone.
Well, Disney's just gone off the fucking deep end with stuff like that now, and that's just 2023 in a nutshell. People are getting absolutely ridiculous, but I can't really be mad at this. I mean, it happened in the 1960s. Like, shit, I wasn't born for like another 33 years on top of that. So any version of Fantasia, I mean, I would have watched like the 1990 or 1991 VHS restoration, which had some other changes in there as well. I'd have watched that version, so I'd have been blissfully unaware that these were even a thing. I'm pretty, because it was 1960s when it was removed. I'm pretty sure my original VHS copy doesn't have these characters in there. So there is no way that we could watch the original theatrical version of this film, which is really interesting. It's all a different version.
There are things that it does change though, because I watched the side by side, and there's bits where obviously you've got the the little black centaurs with the blonde one, Sunshine again, isn't it?
Sunflower, I think.
Sunflower, yeah. So you've got her, and then the way she's kind of posing, and he's sort of behind her, holding like flowers and stuff, whatever. She looks at him, and if you put them side by side, you're like, it is missing though. Yeah. Whereas she's just kind of posing in the censored version, so it's not something you miss, but it is also like you have kind of removed something. It's not just the character that's taken out.
It was going to be a bit more X-rated as well, because apparently they were originally drew with bare-breasted centaurettes. And I mean, we do get nipples. This is the first Disney film with nipples.
They do that though, don't they?
We see nipples in the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, a couple of frames of that. So yeah, but I think they had to tone it down. I think they were told by like the fucking censor people, whatever they're called, just like, yeah, no, this shit ain't gonna fly. Zeus is an absolute dick during this whole segment, just literally pissing on everyone's parade, and then he just goes to sleep. But anyway, Dance of the Hours is next. This is Ponchielli. You've got ostriches, you've got hyacinth hippo, what's that? Elephantine. Oh, these have all got names.
I really like the hippo.
Okay, so the ostrich is called Madame Upanover. You've got hyacinth hippo, you've got Elephantine, and you've got Ben Alligator.
That's it, yeah.
It's terrible. And yeah, it's meant to be for morning, afternoon, evening, and the nighttime. I quite like this segment. My favorite bit is where the music like really ramps up and gets like really energetic towards the end, and you've got the alligators chasing Hyacinth around. I quite like that segment. There's some funny slapstick in there, and it's timed really well. When they kind of do that like cape pose and they jump out, and it like hits that time in the music. It's really good stuff.
I like the hippos. They're very. Do you remember Animaniacs? You remember the hippos in that?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they remind me of.
Mm. The animation's really good in this as well. So this is where I mentioned that they sent some of the animators to the ballet to get some inspiration and some research from it. And I think they looked at actresses as well. I think it's kind of fucked up to compare her to a hippo, but they looked at an actress at the time who was like 200 pounds or something like that, to see how she moved, I guess, in order to how they would animate the hippo. It's kind of fucked up. It's like, so what are we doing here today? Well, we're just getting some of your movements because we're going to turn you into hippo in animation. Like, I can't imagine how that shit would go. Yeah, it's a fun sequence. It's got some fun energy to it. But we move on to
before you go do that, I was going to say I like the night and day thing. Like, I think that's really great. I like how the things change, and Kingdom Hearts again is a one where there's a world that you go in and you're in that bit and it changes. You do these couple of things. It goes from nighttime to daytime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
no, I like that.
I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's quite a long segment as well. I think when I was rewatching this was when I was like dying of the flu or whatever the hell I had. And I think I had to pause this segment a few times. I'd watch like a couple of minutes of it, and then I'd like have to have a bit of a nap and then wake up and then watch a bit more. So I remember, this segment probably isn't even that long, but it just felt long on the rewatch because I had to pause it so many times because I was like dying.
I swear it's like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's probably not even that long. Just felt long. Okay, now we're on to the big guns right now. This is my kind of segment. This is the best one. We talk about early Disney as well, being really kind of dark and horror filled, and probably nothing gets more horror filled than this. Night on Bald Mountain by Mussorgsky. One of my favorite bits of classical music, which I was introduced to from this. Listen to the hell out of this. This was my most replayed segment. Chernobog's such a fucking cool looking character. Like you got him on the background, like look at him. I think originally, and now that I read this, I can kind of see it, but I heard that they were displeased with some of the results, so maybe they ditched it, but when I read this, I can actually kind of see it in the face a little bit. They bought in a Bela Lugosi to match the face of, and now that I can see that, like old school Dracula, I can kind of see that a little bit in the close-ups in Chernobog's face. When he's like looking with like evil intent at like what he's doing, and you get those close-ups. I can kind of see that a little bit. And I think there was also a guy who got shirtless as well for Chernobog's ripped body, because dude lifts. Dude is in tremendous shape. What is Chernobog's workout plan? I need to know.
Chernobog is... Thing is, he's the epitome of evil, isn't he? That's the thing.
He's basically Satan. Yeah, I like the folklore about the song as well. Like when it's based on like Bald Mountain. Is it like based on a real mountain? Is it, or something in
that I don't know,
in Europe somewhere? But I love that it is meant to be the place of like this summoning of evil. That it's meant to be where spirits rise from the dead. And I think in the intro, don't they mention that it was the precursor to Halloween or something? I think.
Yeah, it was to do with spirits rising, like you said. Yeah.
But
to be fair, like I say, he's the epitome of evil. He is, but he's everything you think like an evil spirit thing to be. He's all black. He's always got wings. There's fire. There's everything involved that you think from an evil monster, basically. I do like his wings. I think they're cool, and he wraps them around himself, doesn't he?
I love that. Yeah. I love how he forms the mountain, and then he unfurls the wings, and then eventually when the bell rings at the end and daylight's on the way again, how he folds them back in and it completes the mountain again. It's such a cool design. It's a really, really cool visual representation of it. And he is Satan basically in this series. He basically raises everyone from the dead in order to like fucking destroy them or like transform them into horrible, disgusting creatures, or just to crush them. And yeah, it's just pure evil, and it's great, and I love it, and I love the imagery around it. So much going on with the animation as well. When you've got like the whole swirling of the lost souls, you've got something that kind of looks like the Horned King riding a skeleton horse, which is a really cool shot. And this is where we get nipples. We get flying harpies at the camera, and if you pause it at the right moment, you get nipples. I remember seeing that as a kid, going like, so that's what they look like.
That's what a girl's nipples look like.
It's a great piece of music. I absolutely love it.
He reminds me of you ever watched Digimon?
Yeah, I've seen Digimon.
Which one is it? It's not. No, it is. It's Devimon, because Devimon's the little one. Yeah, Devimon, where he rides. He's giant, and he's got like wings, and he's this black horror thing. Which he was always my favorite Digimon. You know, because it was that kind of dark, and I feel like that would have been the inspiration for him. I feel like it would have. You know, that tall because he towers over everyone. The wings tower over everyone. I think he's just got everything that you need in the whole package to just be evil. Like who can go up against him?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, really.
And Chernobog's a really cool boss on Kingdom Hearts as well. It's bloody difficult if you haven't leveled up, but just fly behind his head and just keep smacking the shit out of his bald head, and it's you get the job done.
The thing about it is as well. Like I'm sure if you don't know Disney, don't know Fantasia, and you've not seen him, you're going to think he's just a giant Heartless, because he is this big black monster. So again, he's the epitome of just this big black monster. He looks not basic, but basic in that sort of he could blend in with any monster.
I think the first time I played I think I was watching someone play. I think it was my next door neighbor's older brother. He had Kingdom Hearts, and I think that kind of got me into it when I was like, because we played a bit of Final Fantasy. It was the one with Vivi. I'm not sure which one that is. Is that 7 or 9? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we played a bunch of that, and then he was like, "Oh, I've got this new game on PS2, and there's like Disney characters in it." I was like, "Cool." And he's like, "But there's also Final Fantasy characters in it." I was like, "What? How is there two?" It's such a weird combination, and even now I'm thinking it's a weird combination, but it works. And I know the first boss Heartless that you fight in the game, I remember asking him like, "Oh, who's that?" And he said, "Oh, that's Chernobog." I'm like, now I know. No, it isn't. It's just the Heartless. Chernobog's in much later, but I always thought that was Chernobog as well for a long time. I was little. I didn't know things.
That's the thing, because again, like that first Heartless, the the dark side Heartless, very similar, big black thing. You know, I think a lot of monsters and stuff are based off of him.
Yeah.
And obviously he's based off Dracula. He comes from this. It's all that very black, dark. Because Dracula, the thing about Dracula, he pulls his cloak around him and everything, doesn't he? So it's all a similar vibe, really.
Yeah, it's the bit, as I say, like Bela Lugosi thing as well. I don't know how much of that they used, because I think they said they brought him in, but then they weren't happy with the results that they had from the animation. So yeah, I'm not sure. But I think it's a wonderful pairing as well with Ave Maria, two completely polar opposite songs which close out the film. And I always love that kind of imagery. I mean, it's literally biblical. It's mythological. It's dark versus light kind of thing. I always love Kingdom Hearts. Jesus Christ, take a shot every single time they mention darkness or light or friendship or heart. You know, it's all that stuff. But it just really works for stuff like this. And then Ave Maria is just this really nice, spiritual kind of way to like end the movie. Apparently, they were toying with the idea of having an image of the Madonna in the sky, in the clouds, and then again Walt Disney pulled that because he didn't want
she is now.
What?
What she is.
But he didn't want any overly religious connotations in there. But I like the pairing, I like the segue, and although they are two separate songs, how they form and how they flow, it just feels like one big continuous piece, doesn't it?
I think it would have been good if that was at the beginning, because that would have been beginning soft, end like as a horror kind of. I think that would have gone well as well.
Yeah. And after that it just kind of ends. There's like it's old school movies. There's no credits. It just ends. That's your show. So taking my mind back to what it would have been like to have seen this in a cinema at the time with your intermission, feeling like an actual concert, like boom, that's it, done. So it does feel more like the concert experience more than it does a movie, I guess, in that respect, because it just kind of cuts off at the end. But it's a good note to leave you on, I think. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'd end with the badass Night on Bald Mountain stuff, but I can see why they'd end with something like that. I was reading some early reviews, and this woman right here. Let me find this. This is hilarious. But we'll kind of round off on this in a second. Let me find reviews. Here we go. So I was looking at, I mean, it was mostly just like critical acclaim from people. Like, people fucking love this movie. It's on loads of lists of like some of the best animated films ever made, quite rightly so. The ones that were more negative on it tended to be people that came from the classical music community. They were saying like, oh, the way that the arrangements were arranged, how they like chopped some of the music up and edited it, like they didn't like it. They didn't like the sound. They didn't like the way that certain excerpts of the music was removed, and they weren't complete. Classical music people being classical music snobs. But there was this woman. Let's see, one review of the film. Oh, here we go. This is brilliant. Right. I'm reading from Wikipedia right now. There were also a few negative reactions that were more political in nature, especially since the film's release happened at the time when Nazi German reigned supreme in Europe. One review of the film in this manner, written by a Dorothy Thompson for the New York Herald Tribune on November 25th, 1940, was especially harsh. Here we go. Thompson claimed that she, quote, left the theatre in a condition bordering on nervous breakdown, end quote, because the film was a, quote, remarkable nightmare. Thompson went on to compare the film to rampant Nazism, where she described as the abuse of power and the perverted betrayal of the best instincts. Thompson also claimed that the film depicted nature as being titanic, while man was only a moving lichen on the stone of time. She concluded that the film was cruel, brutal, and brutalizing, and a negative caricature of the decline of the West. In fact, Thompson claimed that she was so distraught by the film that she even walked out of it before she saw the last two segments, Night on Bald Mountain and Ave Maria, because she did not want to be subject to any more of the film's brutalization. She really needs to find a thesaurus, this woman, doesn't she? I don't know who hurt this woman, but I don't know where she's getting that reading from. It's just, I read that, I was like, what the fuck is she talking about? One thing I want to mention, oh yeah, so like loads of different versions of this film, right? So throughout the age, like the original negatives deteriorated in quality. They had to, like completely reanimate segments and like re-add color into it. The sound, especially like the original audio track, had to be replicated, I think, and I think some of the musical numbers as well had to just be straight up re-recorded because the original audio track was gone. I know that the what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Deems Taylor, the Master of Ceremonies, his voice had to be redubbed because the original quality is gone. So again, like you're never going to get the proper original version. But one thing that's really interesting, and I wish I could bring up a picture of this, but if you go on Wikipedia, you'll find it. The 1969 re-release, which was the one that saw the removal of Sunflower and Otica. They were clearly trying to pander to a certain crowd because there's a really cool, offensively pink and neon green 1969 psychedelic style poster of the re-release of Fantasia. Makes it look like a film completely unlike what it is. So clearly they're going for the
in all fairness,
the certain crowd.
The 60s, it had a big revival for Fantasia. It was a big psychedelic thing in the 60s. Fantasia had, which Alice in Wonderland, again, that kind of colours, LSD, I'm sure they're going to sit there going, right, got an idea for a movie. Have you ever taken LSD? Let me show you. That kind of thing, which a lot of people, in the 60s, that was a big thing. So, yeah, that had a big revival.
Yeah, it's got here, the film was promoted with a psychedelic-styled advertising campaign, and it became popular among teenagers and college students who reportedly appreciated it as a psychedelic experience. Animator Ollie Johnston recalled that young people, quote, thought we were on a trip when we made it. Every time we'd go to talk to a school or something, they'd ask us if we were on something. So, yeah, it's a worth checking out, the poster. It's so unlike anything. It looks like same kind of era, I think, same kind of crowd. The old Doctor Strange comics, Marvel, if anyone's seen anything like that, it looks exactly like that. So, yeah, it's worth checking out. Overall opinions on Fantasia then. For me, I think if you're looking at it as an animated film, it's got to be up there in the upper echelons of one of the best animated films ever made. The fact that this was made around the same time as Pinocchio as well, it just absolutely blows my mind that they got both of those films out at the same time. Interestingly enough, I don't think I mentioned this on the stream. I think we talked about this before. The Sorcerer's Apprentice started its animation work on the day of my birthday. Not the same year of my birthday, thankfully, but the same day. January the 21st, 1938, 36, was it, or something? 38, I think it was. 1938, yeah. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I loved going back to this one. My opinions on it haven't really changed. I thought the animation was stellar back then, and I think now, again, like I keep mentioning this, the reason that I wanted to do this retrospective wasn't just because it was the 100th year anniversary, but it's because I've kind of fallen out of love with modern Disney, I'll say. I've never fallen out of love with the Disney that I liked before, but modern Disney. And I wanted a trip down memory lane to remind myself what made the company so great to begin with. And it's films like this. It's
a lot. It's amazing. Disney does. They do like a lot of firsts with the whole. But I've always been adamant. I've always been a person that if if you're the first of your kind or the last of your kind, you're going to be memorable.
Yeah.
You get like Motley Crue are pretty much the first hair metal band. So they are very memorable. It's like that. Like Disney do a lot of. You know, the first full-length animated movie. Disney Pixar did the first full-length computer animated movie.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of firsts, and I think. Obviously, they do well with it as well. It takes off. It's not just they do it and it's terrible. It takes off and they do well. But like Fantasia, again, I'm not saying it's like the first full length animated musical, but like the first thing to really take, I think, the experience of being at cinema and putting it on screen. Because like I say, nowadays, yes, it's just a movie. But back then, it was the experience you'd have at cinema. You'd have the guy playing the piano. But instead, it was right. But these are actually made to fit just music. And then you got the person introducing. Now you got the next cartoon. Now you got the next cartoon. I think that's the great thing that Disney do and Disney have always done. I just don't know what their next first will be.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the next thing. Yeah, I was trying to think about it when you said that. But I mean, modern Disney, they would never make a film like this now. They'd never go, we're going to make a 2-hour film that's just classical music with animation over it. That kind of original concept right there. They'd never do anything like that. But like you said
before, who's going to watch it realistically? If they did that, well, who's it going to target? There's a lot of people, and I'm not the biggest fan of musicals in a sense, and I know a lot of people that, I know this isn't a musical, it's different, but what I'm saying is I'm not the biggest fan of musicals. I know so many people that aren't the biggest fan of musicals because they're like, well, why do we sing about it 24/7? So my point is, a lot of people like musicals, this kind of stuff, you've got, okay, maybe not musicals are a niche audience, but you've got a certain type of audience. Like if you like musicals, you like musicals. If you like this, you like this. And so if you were to do it now, how big's the movie realistically going to be?
Yeah, and I'm waiting for that next bout of inspiration. We'll see, because we're going to be doing this for many, many more weeks. Disney's Wish is out soon, which is the new Disney animated classic. Hell, before that point, we'll probably have another 1 or 2 Disney animated classics out by that point. We'll find out. But yeah, this was Fantasia. So yeah, it's definitely up there in one of the best animated features. Animation's absolutely second to none. That being said, because of all the reasons that we've mentioned, it's not one that I go back to really very often at all. Occasionally I might watch the Night on Bald Mountain sequence because it's just so fucking good and I love it. But the film beginning to end, it's not one that will keep bringing me back because it is so niche like that. But that doesn't take away from it from being a great film. It's just, you can acknowledge something as being the best, but you can always have your favorite. The best Star Wars film is probably Empire Strikes Back, but my favorite is Return of the Jedi. You know what I mean? Like, one is objectively the better one, but you have your
I objectively would say New Hope, but
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, there's absolutely an argument to be made for that as well. Yeah, that.
I meant in terms of my favorite, as in Return of the Jedi is nowhere near.
Everyone shits on Return of the Jedi. I think it's fucking great.
And there's good reason for it.
Oh, that's a different stream for another time. Next week, we are back with Dumbo. Pretty sure 61 minutes. Sorry, I said 64 earlier. It's 61 minutes. It's even shorter than I thought it was. I have already watched that in preparation. That was a really fun one to go back to. we're going to be talking controversy. We're going to be talking deleted scenes. We're going to be talking animation. We're going to be talking about Dumbo next week. So
I have a good Dragon Ball comparison.
And hopefully a Van Halen comparison as well. So you've got a
I'll
week to
find
think one. You've got a week to think of one. And we'll be 4 in. We'll be a month in already to this whole retrospective. So this is great. I'm having a blast talking about Disney, and I'm just grateful that you're still joining me on these because you are absolutely the right man for the job. It's always
Is Bambi
good
after Dumbo? The one after?
Bambi's the next one after that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because they went through like an animal period. You know, obviously with those two, but then obviously when you start getting into Lady and the Tramp stuff like that, they've had quite because from what I remember, I know this is a tiny bit off topic, but wasn't like Lady and Tramp, Oliver and Company, and like that close together as well?
No, they were a bit further apart. So you have Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, then 101 Dalmatians. So that's pretty close, I guess, in terms of animal things. Jungle Book was 2 films after that. Then Aristocats was after that. Robin Hood.
That's what I mean, because Robin Hood again.
Hound. So yeah, exactly. It was over years. Yeah, and then Oliver Company was like 1987 or 1986, I think it was. Let's see if it tells me. Why doesn't it have the date of these films? It just really annoys me. I can Google this. Hang on.
But one thing though, they haven't changed on the DVDs, because you know how the style of the numbers, like 52, 64, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They had it in little bubbles, and they changed it. They've kept it the same recently. They haven't changed it.
They have, yeah, and I'm just dreading the day where they change the house style from these because like this looks immaculate at the moment.
They haven't got the covers anymore, though, have they? Or do they?
Say that again. Sorry.
Do they still do the covers, like the sleeves?
Yeah, they still do them. Yeah.
Remember when they did the villain sleeve? I had them. That was cool.
I remember that. Yeah, they did do that for some. 1988 was Oliver and Company. That was it.
That was just before the one in the sea, the fish, Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, there we go. And then we get into the good streak. Then I can't wait to get as soon as we hit Little Mermaid, mate. We've got Little Mermaid, Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas. Boom, boom, boom. Every week it's going to be amazing. Beauty and the Beast
was the first one for me. It's the one I remember. You know, when on videos when you get the little every time you watch a movie, just before the movie, you get like 2 adverts every time for a different movie. Mm-hmm. I always remember Beauty and the Beast. It was like there was always a limited edition video out now.
Yeah,
always.
It was the special edition version. Yeah. That's going to be interesting when we get to that one though, because I don't know if Disney Plus gives you the choice of either one. I've got the special edition version. I actually no, I think my DVD lets me pick which one. Theatrical version gets rid of one of the songs. Special edition version has Human again, where all the household items sing a song about how they're so excited to transform back into humans. I quite like that song, so I'll probably watch the special edition version when we get to that.
Remember the one with in the snow with the big evil organ,
the Enchanted Christmas. Yeah, Tim Curry as Forte, the organ.
I like that one.
It's great. Some of the songs in that are wonderful. Like comparatively to Alan Menken's stuff, like they're great. I used to watch that a lot. And yeah, it was that whole push for the Disney sequels, wasn't it? I remember as well in one of the Disney video cassettes, and I did send off for it, and I did get it. You could send off for like a Disney alarm clock. It was like this silver, like metal one, and it had a picture of like Lady and the Tramp. I think it had like Beast, and then it was like another one on there as well on the clock face. A little alarm clock. And I had that for years, an embarrassing amount of time, even to the point where it didn't work. But I'm going to have to try and dig some of my old videos out to see if I've got some of those old like leaflets in there advertising the Disney movies and stuff, because that'll be fun.
Now they don't do any of that.
No,
they don't do that.
We don't get any
no
of that
leaflets, just a disc.
No, now we just get disclaimers before movies on Disney Plus because we don't want to offend anyone now. Anyway, let's not talk about modern Disney. We're still in old school Disney. And we're going to be getting on to Dumbo next week, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you to everyone that's watched. This was pre-recorded, by the way, so I'm not going to be able to hang around in comments and things like that, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video.